I've always had an affinity for the GT-R nameplate. My dream car is a Skyline R34 GT-R. And you know, when the R35 first released back in 2007, 2008, it's been a long time. I couldn't say I loved it at first sight, but I understood what it meant. You know, the supercars of today wouldn't be what they are if it wasn't for the R35 GT-R. It's a trendsetter the same way that its predecessors were. It's a proper successor, but somewhere along those lines, you know, you see all these 1,000 wheel horsepower builds, highway runners, straight line speed, top speed runs, etc., etc. And that's kind of sad to see because that's not what the GT-R nameplate stood for. The GT-R nameplate stood for something else. I remember watching a documentary back then when they were interviewing one of the engineers of the GT-R, and they said that the GT-R is meant to handle, it's meant to corner. And that's why we're here right now. You know, we're heading to one of my favorite routes north of Manila, and that's what we're gonna find out today, if it can truly live up to its nameplate. As I mentioned earlier, the R35 GT-R has been here for quite some time now. So gone is the old V-Motion grille, replaced with a new R34-esque inspired grille, new wheels, but aside from that, there really isn't that much left to say. It still is a GT-R through and through, and it's still unmistakably an R35. See these taillights? I told you, unmistakable. Of course, it needs to be said that the GT-R is already a very, very old car. It has spanned 3 generations of the Porsche 911. 3 generations. Think about that for a second. You know, it had an extensive-ish update back in 2017, but that was already 7 years ago. You know, sitting inside the 35 GT-R now, you know, you could really feel that it is quite dated. The infotainment system doesn't have Apple CarPlay, well, at least for this model. Since this is the latest generation, you could have Apple CarPlay in the future since some units in the US already have it. But one thing to note about this head unit is the fact that, you know, since it's made by Polyphony, they put a lot of data in this head unit. So you can check your coolant temp, your turbo your boost pressure, engine oil temp. So you could really monitor your car state at all times, especially during hard driving. That's very, very useful. The interior is relatively comfortable inside. I could see myself driving long distances in this car. I like the gauges. I still like the fact that it's still analog, though they could use an update with the screens over there. You know, just make it slightly more modern. But overall though, it's a very usable interior. It's quite spacious. You have cubby holes here, cubby holes in the sides. It's easy to get your driving position rather correct, at least for me. So though some people might have an issue. You know, this is a very, very, very special moment for me right now, to be behind the wheel of perhaps one of the greatest cars ever made, at least in my eyes. That GT-R nameplate really means a lot to me. You know, last year I had the opportunity to drive a Skyline R34 GT-R in Japan, and that was very surreal. And right now, I'm driving its successor, the R35 GT-R. And you know, from the get-go, I could feel its similarities. And maybe that's why it speaks and calls so much to me in how it feels and that sort of aura it gives to me. And soon in the twisties, I will explain more on how and why it gives me that sort of fizz, that sort of feeling that I like. pros would assume it to be. It corners very, very well. It's so visceral, and that 3.8 liter hand-built V6 just rockets you out of the corners so fast, and before you know it, you're already in the next corner. And that's the thing with the GT-R, is it gives you so much control without losing any of that emotion that you so crave. Take this corner here, take it hard. And another beauty about the GT-R is its e-ATESA system. So you can just play with the throttle at 30% in the corner and have that sort of rotation. It's amazing. Amazing how this car can rocket you off the corners. You know, it hides its weight very well. The GT-R is a very heavy vehicle. It's 1.7, 1.8 tons thereabouts. But it doesn't feel like it. The only time you'll feel its weight is when you're stepping on the brakes a bit hard. But other than that, it's an amazing vehicle in the corners. Here, out here in the twisties, you know, it's so visceral. See that? Bit of rotation, 20-30% throttle. There we go. How it rockets you out like that with such control, such power, precision. And that's the thing. With its e-ATESA system, you can have some fun with it. You can make the tail go out a bit. And something very important to note is, for a lot of people, whether if they do sport driving such as this, you know, you would probably want to put it all in R mode. Well, yes, but for me, where in the mountain roads, where the roads are not, you know, not stellar at all, you know, there are quite a bit of dips and bumps, comfort mode is actually the way to go. Because when you put it to R mode, like what I'm gonna do it right now, putting it to R mode, the car actually skips. And it isn't that much confidence inspiring. On the track though, that would be a different story. But of course, that's a prep surface. So out here on the mountain roads, I suggest put it in R mode for the drivetrain, R mode for the traction control, and comfort mode for the suspension. It's well damped, it's damped enough that it can soak up all the bumps very, very well, yet still having full control of the vehicle. And that's the beauty of the GT-R. You know, you can actually drive this car every day as well. You won't have any look at that rotation. Oh man, that rotation is just amazing, amazing. And I can do this all day. You know, like give me a gas card, give me a GT-R, give me a mountain road. I'll do it all day. All day. And another thing to note is that the transmission is so responsive. It doesn't deny me of any downshifts whatsoever. Like I said, everything about the car gives you absolute full control. And you know, I'd understand some people saying that it could feel like a computer, you know, a rocket ship missile of sorts, which could be true out on the highway, out on the straights. Yeah, sure, you put your foot down and it goes. But out here on the twisties, people who own GT-Rs, you know, owe it to the engineers to actually experience this car out on mountain roads, out on the track. You know, it's a shame if you just stay on the highways, you know, like 90%, 99% of GT-R owners actually. That's a shame. Because this car is capable of so much more than an open highway. That 3.8 liter V6 makes 565 horsepower. And Yeah, it could be a bit too much power for your day-to-day use, for the corners and the twisties, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't feeling intoxicated. I wouldn't have it any other way. That engine is such a marvel. And with this latest iteration of the Nissan GT-R, they've actually perfected this 3.8 liter V6 engine to the point that oil temps are stable, very very stable. I'm at 99 degrees right now, where at some cars at this point of driving you'd be at 120. With this though, you can drive this all day long and you won't even worry, because the cooling system handles everything like a champ. See that? That's power. Now that's power. It just feels so intoxicating. And I don't get how people just enjoy this out on the mountain, out on the highway. You can go bring it out on the twisties and experience what a car is capable of. Okay, I have to gather my thoughts a little bit here. That was amazing. I'm lost for words, honestly. You know, the GT-R, you know, I get why people are hating on it, because of the fact it's been here for quite some time. It's been here since 2007, 2008. That's a long time. But even in today's standards, I'll put it back to comfort mode, normal. Even in today's standards, it still is a weapon. And it's not a computerized weapon as most would assume. It's very, very emotional to drive, actually. And I do hope people realize that it's not just a car that's for the straight line, you know. People are so mesmerized nowadays with 800, 1000, 2000 wheel horsepower Instagram GT-R builds. But you know, if I had one, if I owned one, and I do want to own one, I'd keep the power stock, maybe put some nice wheels on it, maybe some other bolt-ons, call it a day, enjoy the car. So going back to our mode here, something with that EATS system is the fact that you can give 20-30% throttle input on the corner and the car will sort of rotate for you. Put your foot down. Take this corner. 20-30% throttle. And there's sort of rotation. And that's what driving's all about. That's the beauty of driving right there. I've driven a lot of vehicles in the past couple of years. You know, I own a 911 myself. And I have to say, I enjoy this more than a 911 out here in this road. This is an experience. And it's an experience that I think every petrol head should have in their lifetime. It's amazing. How responsive the transmission is. Downshift here, take this corner, make the EATS work, rotate, let the engine pull you out, shift, downshift. If only you could feel what I'm feeling right now. You know, hopefully people realize that the GT-R isn't gonna be here forever. Like its predecessors, the GT-R has always been a trendsetter. You know, it set lap records, the 32, 33, 34 GT-R set lap records. You know, they beat cars twice or thrice its price. The 35 also followed suit. It was a trendsetter in its own right. And you know, you look at other supercar manufacturers nowadays, they wouldn't be where they are right now if the GT-R didn't come into equation. The 35 continued the lineage that its predecessors had, and it continued it very well. Now you would be wondering, you know, but Carlos, it's an old car already. Shouldn't there be an R36? Yes, I understand that, and of course, me being a GT-R fan would also want an R36. But with a car as greatly engineered as this, how do they top it up? How do they one up the R35? How can they continue that GT-R lineage and become trendsetters once again? Yeah, maybe they can with, you know, electrified technology. And I don't want to sound that guy, but would it be the same? You know, enjoy the R35 right now while you can, because it's not gonna be around forever. Yes, it's been here for a long time, but it's not gonna be around forever. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy it while you can. You know, for, you know, at an asking price of 12.445 million pesos here in the Philippines, it's a big ask. But for those who can afford it, I'll be right behind you rooting. Do it. Do it. Because trust me, you will not regret owning one, as long as you drive it how the engineers intended it to be driven. The drive today proved all my theorized assumptions correct. It's not just a straight line rocket that most would assume it to be. It's a car that can corner, that can take the mountain roads with absolute perfection, and do it along with emotion. If you own a GT-R, I urge you, and please I urge you, to take your car out on mountain roads, enjoy the car as what the engineers intended it to be. You owe it to the engineers to enjoy the car. Carlos from YugaAuto out. I'll see you next time.